From the day my daughter was born, I could tell she was something special. We named her Zoe, and she was the smartest baby I'd ever seen. Every single month, I loved my special little girl more and more. But for some odd reason, my wife distanced herself away from Zoe every single month. By the 6th month, my wife barely even gave Zoe a glance. I could tell it made Zoe sad, but I didn't really want to bring it up. I just wanted my daughter to know that I loved her very much. Zoe said her first word when she was 3 months old: Daddy. She never really said Mommy or even Mom, but my wife never seemed to mind. If anything, she finally looked to be in a much better mood. By the time she was 6 months old, Zoe started to walk. She would still fall sometimes, but I was completely blown away by how strong-willed her young mind was. Instead of crying whenever she fell, she would just pick herself back up and continue trying. On Zoe's first birthday, my wife was busy with work, so I shared a very special day with my daughter. I got her a chocolate cake to smash and devour. She didn't touch it, but she looked perfectly happy with staring at the cake with a look of wonder on her face. We spent the rest of the day playing with her presents until it was her bedtime. My wife didn't come home until 10 p.m. I asked her where she was, but she put up her hand to my face and walked past me into our bedroom. I sighed and watched TV until I fell asleep on the couch. I woke up to the sounds of my wife and Zoe talking. My wife was trying to get her to say Mommy, but Zoe kept clapping her hands while saying Daddy with a wide smile on her face. That was the last time my wife tried talking to Zoe. On the day of Zoe's second birthday, my wife told me she was going to stay later at work. I tried begging and reasoning with her to stay, but she just told me it wasn't worth it. I heard sniffles from behind me when my wife left the house. I turned around to see a tear-stricken Zoe staring out the door. She asked me if Mommy didn't love her, but I just hugged her and told her that we both loved her very much. After I pulled away from the hug, Zoe asked me, "Why doesn't she talk to me?" I told her that Mommy was just stressed, to not let it bug her. I got her another cake, but she told me she didn't like to eat cake. She thought it was too pretty to destroy. With a nod, I left the cake on the dining room table and took out 3 brightly colored bags from under the table. We have this tradition where I take out the presents for her and rip the paper as carefully as possible. She liked using the wrapping paper as little decorations for her room. The first 2 presents were just little bow sets and a couple of new books. The third present was one of those baby dolls you can feed and change. She was really excited about the doll. She played with it in the living room by herself until it was time for bed. My wife came back home at 11 p.m. completely drunk. She looked like she was crying, but I was far too tired to even acknowledge that she was there. She did it all the time to Zoe and now me. Our marriage was falling apart, and I really didn't know how to fix it. I thought she was just going to go into the bedroom, but she walked into the middle of the living room and picked up Zoe's new doll. After a couple of seconds, she started to hug the doll and rock it back and forth. The bottle and the 3 toy papers were lying next to it, and my wife picked those up as well. She put the bottle up to the baby and started whispering to it. I was completely at awe at the sight of my wife showing the baby doll more attention than she ever gave Zoe. She sat down on the couch with the doll and took the bottle out of its mouth and continued to whisper to it. The whispering overwhelmed me with curiosity, so I snuck up behind her and tried to listen to what she was saying. It was hard at first, but after a couple of seconds I noticed she was saying the same thing over and over again. "Please call me Mommy." After a couple of minutes, my wife fell asleep with the toy baby on top of her stomach. I walked into the bedroom and grabbed a blanket for her. After I got her settled in, I went back into the bedroom and fell asleep. This morning, I woke up to the sound of my wife laughing for the first time in several years. I rushed downstairs to see what the source of her laughter was. When I walked into the kitchen, I saw my wife twirling around in circles with the toy baby. Zoe was sitting down with tears falling down her cheeks. I picked up Zoe and asked my wife what she was doing. Each time she spun, she said one word at a time. "Just playing with my daughter." I told her that Zoe was crying, but my wife just shrugged and kept spinning around with the baby. This annoyed me quite a bit, but I just took Zoe back into the living room and played with a couple of her older dolls with her. After about an hour later, my sweating wife came out of the kitchen and said she was going to the mall with her daughter. Zoe quickly got up and rushed into her room to change. By the time Zoe came out changed into her outside clothes, my wife and the doll were already gone. Zoe's bedtime rolled around, and I put her to bed. While I put her covers over her, she asked me, "Does Mommy really love me?" I nodded my head at her and smiled. I just told her that Mommy wanted to surprise her with some new clothes. Zoe fell asleep a couple of minutes later with a tiny smile on her face. Tonight my wife came home at around 9 p.m. I walked up to her and asked what was wrong with her. She tried to ignore me, but I kept blocking her way until she stopped and glared at me. She shoved the baby doll in my face and shouted, "She's at least freaking real! Don't you know how hard it is to freaking pretend with you? Zoe's dead. She's been dead. When are you gonna stop playing this stupid game?" I shouted back at her to stop lying, but my wife just fell into my arms and started sobbing. Zoe came downstairs and stared at us hugging. She gave me a smile and walked back upstairs. I started to sob with my wife as memories started to flood in. Our beautiful daughter died just 10 days after we brought her home from the hospital. There was nothing wrong with her. She just fell into a deep sleep and never woke up. The doctors just told us that it was SIDS, but I just never wanted to believe it. After my wife finally settled down, I sat her on the couch and walked upstairs. I walked into Zoe's room and saw all the little wrapping paper from her presents taped on the walls. The toys I got for her were there, and the new bed I bought for her just 2 months ago was there, but Zoe was nowhere to be found. With a heavy sigh, I closed the door to her bedroom and walked into my room. I looked through all the photos on my laptop that I thought I took with Zoe, but it was just me taking pictures of myself. I was about to close my laptop down, but I decided to reach out to you guys. I'm now in the grieving process. My wife is acting crazy, but I was the crazy one all along. My baby is gone, and I just wish I could experience one last day with her.